Hey guys, today I have an example for you that I'm pretty excited about. Sometimes I like to go through the classics, and I was recently going through the games of the 7th world champion Vasily Smyslov. I found this game from 1946 that he was playing against actually another Vasily Panov. I believe this is the same Panov from the Panov-Botvinnik variation of the Caro-Kann. And here we go. Let's actually get into it. Black just played b4, and we have a very sharp situation on the board where White's next move is going to be extremely critical. So this is definitely the kind of moment that you have to stop and think in, guys, because it has to do with your king's safety. Obviously, the king here on a1 is in quite a bit of danger from the black pawns. And right now the knight's under attack. So one move that you really don't want to play is a takes b4, right? And the reason is very simple. We just don't want to do things that make the opponent's pieces better, especially with a tempo, because now that knight is also attacking our queen, and black will shortly play the move a3, just open up everything, and our king is in big trouble. So what else can we do? Well, if you're, let's say, quite new to chess, you might think, oh, that's a free pawn. Yeah, guys, that's most definitely not a free pawn. I mean, we don't even really want to think about moves like that because we understand that this open file that the black rook is going to get against our king is way more important than losing the a4 pawn. So that's not really a serious option for white. So then we have this move, knight b5, and black is going to take, and then black has a nice tactical idea with the move bishop a3, attacking the rook and using the fact that if the knight takes the bishop, there is going to be a fork on b2. Black's going to win the exchange and just have a huge attack against the white king. So what to do? I mean, we basically looked at all the logical moves, 2 moves by the knight, capturing the pawn, and none of them seem to be very good. So actually, we're looking for something kind of special here, guys. And if the moves that you're seeing don't suit you, then you just have to keep looking further to find something that does. And white came up with this move. A very important move. It's quite cool. You're attacking the black queen, and because of that attack on the queen, they don't have time to take your knight and pawn. And black has a very big choice here. So they can go for the end game. Obviously, they don't really want to do that because they want to mate you. But let's see what happens on the move queen a7. When I was going over this game, guys, that was my big question. Actually, what happens on this move? Because as black, I really, really don't want to trade queens when I'm trying to attack my opponent's king. So watch this line, guys. We're going to see some cool stuff here. So white takes this pawn, and that's been the main benefit of queen b5, is that you push the black queen away. Now you can take the center pawn, put your knight on a really good square. But let's say black takes here. I mean, this doesn't look very clear at all. And as I was analyzing this game, I could see the computer's evaluation, but I purposefully hid the move, so I didn't know what actual move white was supposed to play. But I saw the evaluation was just huge for white, like something like plus, I don't know, remember 4 or 5 or 6, which is, you know, that's 4 or 5 or 6 pawn advantage. And that's considered, you know, extremely large in chess, like it's time for black to resign. But it was a little confusing to me because, okay, what move here seems to win for white? Like, it seems like white's king is in danger. It seems like black also potentially wants to capture that pawn if he gets a chance to do it with check. So what could be so winning? I mean, I thought about moves like knight takes e7. I mean, that didn't seem to win. I actually thought of this move, queen b6, which is the second best move in the position to try to trade queens and protect the d pawn. But the best move is quite sophisticated, I would say. Rook c4 didn't cross my mind at all. And that is like the crushing move, right? So it's a little hard to, to find a crushing move when it's neither a check nor a capture nor really a threat. I mean, I suppose there's a small kind of threat of taking that pawn. But the main power of that move is also that you're just protecting d4. And yeah, I mean, why is white winning in a position like this? Of course, it's a crazy position. White's king is just facing off against two black pawns, not his own pawns, right? And despite that, white is winning. So why is that, actually? There must be a reason, right? Because when your king is open like this, normally you're not doing well. So why are you doing well now, right? Well, there is, I think, a way to explain it. And it comes down to this word centralization. If you look at white's pieces, the rook, the queen, the knight, the pawn on d4, pawn on e6, white is, really strong in terms of controlling the center, while black is kind of lined up on the queen side, right? And of course, it's not like the win is trivial here. I mean, for example, I'm going to show you the most direct line with a3, prompting this king to take, and then trying to win the queen. I mean, it looks very, very plausible, doesn't it? I mean, why is white so winning? Well, watch this, guys, because now we're going to see some tactics. Rook takes b8. Knight takes e7. And so now black has a choice. If he doesn't want to take the knight, like with a move like that, then rook c8 is going to be a rook trade, and then I get out of danger, I save my queen, and I'm up a rook. So if you take, looks like you're going to win my queen, right? Looks like I can't really get out of it. But fortunately, I can take your rook. And when you take me back, I get this beautiful back rank check. And that forces you to give away your queen to avoid the checkmate. But of course, after I take your queen and you take back, I'm just completely winning with a rook versus a knight and plus a million center pawns. So yeah, guys, this is not a simple line, I would say. I mean, especially the move rook c4 is like, it's a high level move. And if you saw that from far away, I mean, I would say you'd probably be at like close to grandmaster level. So yeah, this is not a trivial line, guys. But the idea, I think, is important to understand. It's the power of centralization, and that was what was helping white out in this queen a7 line. So in the game, black decided he didn't want to lose the d5 pawn, so he traded on b5, and white took. And yes, that knight is highlighted because that knight is the main source of white's advantage in this position. You're going to see that even though white has a protected pass pawn over here, black is also going to get a protected pass pawn on the queen side. And black is able to challenge white for the open file, right? So what is it that makes white's position better? I mean, even black's bishop, it's a perfectly reasonable piece exerting some pressure on this diagonal. But what makes white's position better, it is the power of this knight compared to that knight, right? So we know we have a famous saying in chess, one bad piece makes the entire position bad. I think this is a pretty good illustration of it because I think without this knight being on the board, guys, black would not have much of a problem. But the knight is terrible. It is on the side of the board, and the worst part is that it cannot get off the side of the board. And white plays king b1. Yeah, this is a nice little move because, of course, the king is not very relevant on a1, and there's even back rank problems. And if you watch the video on using your king in the endgame, then you will definitely understand the value of improving your king once you enter the endgame. So black plays g6. Yeah, they're trying to undermine our protected pass pawn on e6. And white found a nice way to deal with that, bishop d6. So if you take, you're going to give me a very dangerous knight that is going to be helping me promote this pawn. So, you know, in case of like rook d8, there's a move like rook c6. And again, you know, black is suffering with this bad knight. e7 is the threat here. So black decides to go king f8. And now white plays a simple g4. And now we really see the point of bishop d6 because it actually unblocked the g-pawn. Just take a look again. The bishop was blocking the pawn. So this allowed white to get the tempo they needed to unblock the pawn and just, you know, solidify the pawn chain, right? Which is all we really needed to do. So black took, we took, they took. Okay, bunch of trades. And rook c7. And now there was another key moment in the game, guys. Because when the opponent has a bad piece, you never want to do anything to improve it. Right? That's pretty much the idea that has to be fixed in your mind. Like, watch out for that bad piece. Make sure whatever you do, that piece stays bad. But now white actually breaks that rule. Yeah, even future world champions, you know, get things wrong in chess. And I think what white should have done is the improvement of the H rook, right, which is not currently in the game. So for example, a move like rook H E1, threatening to trade on C7 and then play E7 and promote the pawn. I mean, it's a simple move. Black has a few different things they can do, but essentially, let's say king E7, attacking our knight. Now, if black goes rook c4, then we can simply trade, and the d-pawn is dangerous very quickly. So I guess it's more dangerous than the black pawns, which can't move anywhere right now. We're going to be able to go to d6. Well, what else can black do? Well, black can go back to c8. Again, we have different moves we can play. Rook g1, threatening, you know, invasion on the g7 square. So we're heading here. Let's say they keep us out. All right, well, there's different ways to approach this position. The computer liked e7. I would also say that just moving off the open file and avoiding the rook trade, then you have some chances to double up, and you can see you can start a really big attack against their king. That's one. Also, this giving away the pawn looks a little bit surprising. But the idea is you're actually invading on the 7th rank. And, okay, couple of checks. We get this rook in. Yeah, and black king is under big attack here. I mean, because we can also bring in this knight to d6. And there's going to be a lot of checks from that knight as well. So basically, the main point is what we don't want to do is trade the rooks, as what happens in the game, to make the knight better. So after the rook trade and knight takes c7, yeah, actually you're going to see how the black knight coming into the game made a very big difference. Now, I actually thought that maybe rook c1 was white's idea. Maybe they just thought, well, I'm going to trade rooks, then do that. Maybe they missed this move. This is a really strong counterattack on the white knight. Because now if you take this knight, I take, white wins a pawn, but black gets their rook into the game with play on the g file. That rook's coming down, and black is going to have enough to make a draw. So white chose rook g1 instead, and well, we don't have to look at this in depth, but black played actually quite well to hold the draw. They developed a lot of counterplay. Look at this knight coming in. Fortunately, on rook g7, you have the king f8 move. I mean, your king doesn't have a whole lot of squares, but it has that one, and that's good enough. Notice this knight and what he is capable of attacking from b5. He's already got his eyes on the a3 square, the d4 pawn as well. So white played rook f7, king g8. King is getting a little further away from the white knight. Okay, rook c2, big threat. Knight c5. Okay, now the knight is trying to come to c4 as well as actually attacking the rook on f7. So the rook moved away, knight c4 came. We wound up picking up the pawn. So it's just amazing how the game has changed when the black knight improved, right? I mean, he's not the same bad knight he was before, and white still can't quite manage to do anything. So, okay, white took the pawn on d5, king f8. All right, knight b5, and there was a little liquidating tactic here. Knight takes d4, removing the guard of the c5 knight. And yeah, black has tons and tons of play, although white is also threatening some big stuff at the moment with the move e7, right? Because white is basically one move away from winning, because after that, their knight's going to go like either there or there, depending on where the king goes, and they're going to promote their pawn. So black has taking this pawn just in time and stopping the move e7. All right, so black is doing well, and I guess, yeah, white is still, I don't know, still trying to do something with that pawn. And here it seems like black blundered with the move knight d6, and white, for some reason, did not play rook d7. I'm not sure how to explain that. Maybe the players were some enormous time trouble, or maybe there's like a mistake in the notation as it's coming down to us. Of course, it's very strange that white would not just fork the knight and the king, but it says in the notation that white played here. And I mean, my guess is that there must be some mistake in the notation, because that made little sense. So the game ended in a draw because everything is getting liquidated, and even if white does push the pawn to e7, black can simply give up the knight for it, because it's well known that rook and knight versus rook is a pretty simple draw for the defending side. So what do I want you guys to take away from this game? Well, first of all, the main thing is that you got to be very thorough in your decision making when it comes to the safety of your king, right? So when your king is at risk, got to slow down, understand how important that moment is, and try to make some decisions that are going to preserve his safety. Second thing is the power of centralization, right? Just having your pieces controlling the center, it is the most important part of the board for a reason. And thirdly, the importance of noticing your opponent's bad pieces. Like, your opponent's bad pieces should be something that concern you very much, right? Not only your own pieces, but when the opponent has a bad piece, it is a top priority for you to keep it in its a woeful state. Okay, so there, I went a little bit poetic on that ending, but yeah, guys, it's definitely a very big priority to not allow your opponent's pieces to activate if you have the power to do so. So just watch out for these important themes in your games, and I will see you next time.